Welcome back, monetizers. Mariah Monetize here. So today I am going to be answering the question, how am I approaching this recession? How am I going to maximize my investments? Which markets am I going into? I have friends and family that keep on reaching out and wanting to know the answer to this question. So today I am going to go ahead and give you my thoughts. I think it's very important to remember one thing and one thing only. During this time, during this recession, as we listen to the White House briefings every day, as we see the market move across all markets, things happen every day that should influence our decisions moving forward. And so as we're waiting things like for the stimulus package to be announced and approved and different things like that, it should change your approach going into things. For example, the things that I say today or believe to potentially be true through all of this may change tomorrow because of new announcements that are made. So here are the two things that I am keeping in mind as I decide to enter the market. I am going to be entering traditional markets. I'm going to be entering the cryptocurrency market as well as a Canadian marijuana market. I personally have no plans for real estate, but like I said, things can change over time. I am just trying to take information every single day and try to map out exactly which direction I am going to go in when it comes to making investments during this time. So here are the main two things that I am considering on this particular day. I am considering, one, that things are about to get really bad in terms of number of deaths caused from COVID-19. The numbers are ramping up, right? We are about 2 weeks behind Italy, and things are gonna look scary, and our medical system will continue to be weighed down heavily. The fear is only going to heighten. I believe pretty soon we'll see a countrywide lockdown. The problem is that there are big cities locked down and many states that have total lockdowns, but at this point it's not even half. There are still people out and about spreading the virus at a vicious rate. So things are going to change over in terms of more restrictions and higher deaths. So people are going to respond to the market because of those things. So I don't think that we are close to the bottom from those particular terms. And when we compare this to the past two previous recessions in 08 and 01, we are not, when you look percentage-wise, we dropped about 50 to 60%, like when you take, for example, the S&P 500 into consideration, we dropped out between 50 and 60% for those two last recessions. We're at like the 35% range. So we ultimately have room to go down. So as people become more fearful and this situation only worsens, we could see peak deaths not until the month of June. We have a long ways to go until that happens. I am taking that into consideration. Sure, everything's on sale, but I think there will be more panic and more fear and more sell-offs, which will result in ultimately better deals with stocks, cryptocurrency, and other things. The second thing that I am mainly taking into consideration is the fact that the Fed is printing dollars at a disgusting rate. Our dollar will be devalued dramatically. And so even though we look, for example, back at 01 and 08 and the S&P and how far it fell during those periods of time, what we also need to take into consideration during this time is the rate of the dollar being printed and how that just may potentially prop up the markets. So maybe we won't see that 50 to 60% drop off, for example, in the S&P because the dollar is being inflated so dramatically. This in particular, I believe, is the best scenario for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is ultimately going to get hit a little bit harder, but it's going to thrive in the long term. Bitcoin was created because of the previous financial crisis, and many of us anticipate it to thrive in this current financial crisis. Like I said, it's a day-by-day thing, and it's important to take those main things into consideration. This one will get worse, and two, the dollar is going to be propped up. So we're waiting for a lot of things, a lot of announcements. And one thing to also consider is that, sure, we know we are going to be in a recession, but every recession looks very, very different. And that's why for me, I take the day-by-day approach. I gather information, and I let that influence my decision moving forward to make the best decision possible. So, for me personally, I'm preparing in a way of having as much cash as I possibly can on the sidelines to jump into markets. But if I don't act quick enough and the dollar props up the markets, then I could potentially be left behind or not buying at an optimal price that I was originally anticipating for. So I want to know below, which question do you want answered about the current economical state that we're in? And I will go ahead and give my opinion, but don't forget, this is not financial advice. I am just sharing what I am doing, and it is your responsibility to do your own due diligence and make the best decisions that are right for you. So that's all I have for you today. As always, go out there and create a portfolio that you love.